This is your first installment of Loco Lawyers. In this episode, we're going to focus on the lawsuit filed by John Huber. It was later withdrawn for good reason, but not before we could take a look at it. Now, who are the culprits? Well, let's take a look at the Loco gang. The leader is Anand Swaminathan, and he's backed up by his compadres John Loevy, Elizabeth Wang, Steve Art, David Owens, and this, of course, is the law firm of Loevy and Loevy. Now, you may be wondering, well, how long is it going to take to get to the local part? Well, guess what? Not very long, because in the title of their lawsuit, it states United States District Court, Eastern District of Wisconsin. They misspelled the state name in the title.
That was local, but not in an entertaining way.
And it doesn't take long for the hilarity to continue. Reread the introduction. Number 1, this case involves the tragic death of Anthony Huber, a beloved son and community member who was shot and killed while committing an act of remarkable heroism. It continues. On August 25th, 2020, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Huber was participating in protests against police violence, which were sparked by the police shooting of Jacob Blake 2 days earlier. Mr. Blake was a black man who had been shot in the back 7 times by an officer in the Kenosha Police Department, and Huber was among many who peacefully protested the shooting and Kenosha's pattern of racist and violent behavior by police officers and other officials. And we'll skip down to number 7. Defendants deputized these armed individuals, conspired with them, and ratified their actions by letting them patrol the streets, armed with deadly weapons, to mete out justice as they saw fit. I can just imagine what that deputization ceremony must have looked like. I mean, here is Kyle Rittenhouse and the rest of his white supremacist militia, KKK compadres, and they're standing at attention, and they have a drum roll, and they pin the badges on their chests, and they swear an oath to protect private property and administer medical aid to injured protesters. Deputizing? Don't think so. Oh, and number 8 is even better. As a result of defendants' actions, Rittenhouse fired his assault rifle indiscriminately a number of times at citizens on the street.
This is like watching the British version of The Office. Like, it's funny, but awkward and sad at the same time.
Yes.
That's right, indiscriminately. He just shot at anybody who happened to be nearby. Right, the very fact that these people attacked him first and that he only shot attackers seems to have gotten by these Loco lawyers. Oh, and number 9, Anthony Huber is a hero. He attempted to disarm Rittenhouse, end the gunfire, stop the bloodshed, and protect his fellow citizens. The facts section is amazing. All right, number 22. On August 23rd, 2020, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, KPD officer Rustin Shesky shot Jacob Blake in the back 7 times without justification. Gee, without justification? Is that the reason why the Wisconsin DOJ investigated and told Kenosha County that there was no point in prosecuting Officer Rustin Shesky since this was a case of self-defense? Does that sound like without justification to these local lawyers? Number 25, the KPD and KCSD officers at the scene were antagonistic toward the demonstrators. Gee, I wonder why. Could it be because these people were throwing things at them? Wouldn't that make you a little bit antagonistic towards somebody? And of course, these demonstrators were simply voicing their outrage at the racist and systemic violence conducted by the very officers who were policing the demonstrations. Wow. Okay, number 31. They're talking about the next day after the first day of rioting. That evening, armed individuals descended on Kenosha. They could be seen patrolling the streets in and around the demonstrations, brandishing weapons, threatening residents, and pointing weapons at peaceful demonstrators without provocation. Let's see here. Let's look. Is there any mention of arson? of any kind of violence. You can go and take a look, scroll, read as much as you want. There's no mention anywhere that these demonstrators did anything wrong. There's no mention of rioting. There's no mention of arson. There's no mention of assault. In fact, when you read number 27, officers from the Kenosha Police Department and the Kenosha County Sheriff's Department fired tear gas and rubber bullets into the crowds to break up the demonstrations, and they arrested a number of demonstrators. No mention of rioting, no mention of any of that. On Monday, August 24th, 2020, the demonstrations continued. Again, the curfew was aimed at protesters. Actually, it was not. Among the armed individuals who arrived in Kenosha on August 25th was Kyle Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse was a 17-year-old from Antioch, Illinois. By his appearance, Rittenhouse was obviously a minor. Let's not forget the fact that he's only 4 months away from his 18th birthday, so how obvious could it have been? Number 44, Rittenhouse was brandishing his gun openly and conspicuously. That's right, it's called open carry. In fact, you are breaking the law if you don't make the rifle conspicuous and open. Strapping it over his shoulder using a tactical sling. Oh my God, he's got a tactical sling. They're so powerful. Designed to position the rifle at the center of his chest for rapid elevation and positioning. Yeah, when you're using a rifle to defend yourself, you kind of want to be able to aim it fairly quickly. The rifle was visible at all times across his body or in his hands. That's right, it's called open carry. It has to be visible. Otherwise, he's breaking the law. And then it says, Rittenhouse was in clear violation of the law, which prohibits a minor from possessing or displaying such a gun. Gee, is that the reason why Judge Bruce Schroeder threw out the gun charge? Really? You might have wanted to wait a little bit before writing how obvious it was that Rittenhouse was in clear violation of the law, because he wasn't. And anybody who examined the statutes thoroughly kind of expected that the gun charge was going to be thrown out of court. But in your mind, oh, this was a clear violation of the law. Instead, defendants allowed Rittenhouse to patrol the streets of downtown Kenosha with his deadly assault rifle. Are other rifles not deadly? They invited him in, deputized him, conspired with him, and ratified his actions. So they invited him in to something, I don't know, the town, okay, and they deputized him. I don't know what that ceremony looked like. And then they conspired with him to do what? Conspiracy involves some sort of plan to take action of some sort. So when they say that these police agencies conspired with Kyle Rittenhouse to do what is the obvious question, and it's not even clear here. What were they planning to do? Oh, number 48 is really good too. As a result of defendants' actions, within the zone defendants controlled, Rittenhouse shot at 4 Kenosha area residents. So let me get this straight. Are you really telling me that Kyle Rittenhouse and his fellow, whatever you want to call them, controlled the streets of Kenosha? So when Kyle is walking down the street and Jojo Rosenbaum ambushes him, that zone is under Kyle's control? What about the time when he's running down the street and people are chasing him? Are you telling me that that street was under the militia's control? Number 54 says, Anthony Huber was one of those individuals chasing Kyle. Anthony approached Rittenhouse to disarm him. Oh, is that all he did? No mention here of Anthony Huber running behind Kyle and braining him with his skateboard. No mention of that whatsoever. And no mention of him hitting Kyle with the skateboard a second time. Instead, it's Anthony approached Rittenhouse to disarm him, stop the shooting, and save the lives of others. And how do they know this? Well, they must have interviewed Anthony Huber to ask him why he did this, right? And by the way, number 55, Anthony Huber was a hero. Number 57 gets even crazier. After Anthony was shot, Gage Grosskreutz, and he misspelled his first name, approached Rittenhouse with his hands up, pleading with him to stop his shooting rampage. I can just see it now. Gage saying, "Please, Mr. Militia member, stop this shooting rampage." Rittenhouse shot at Grosskreutz from point-blank range, hitting him in the arm. Thankfully, Grosskreutz survived. Give me a break. Let's read it again. After Anthony was shot, Gage Grosskreutz approached Rittenhouse with his hands up, pleading with him to stop, and then Rittenhouse just shot him. There's no mention anywhere of Gage Grosskreutz actually putting his hands down and then approaching Kyle with his gun out. No. If you read this the way they wrote it, it sounds like Gage was holding his hands up and Kyle thought, all right, he's given up. Oh, here's an opportunity to blow off one of his arms.
You are so loco, man!
Number 65. Likewise, at 11:26 p.m., callers reported that members of the armed individuals had slashed tires in a nearby area. Why are we putting slashed tires in quotation marks? I can understand putting slashed in quotation marks, but tires? No, I think that those were really tires, okay? Real ones. But the defendants did nothing in response to this conduct, let alone arrest the perpetrators. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it was because there was a riot going on. I'm sure that the police were like, oh my God, we got a call about some slashed tires. Never mind the riots and the arson and the violence taking place. We need to investigate this and get those people who slashed these tires. Right. Oh, I love the English in this one. Number 69, Rittenhouse walked right up to the police vehicles. Despite his obviously tender age, he's 17. He's 4 months away from being 18, but he's at a tender age. Needless to say, let me try this again. Needless to say, KPD and KCSD officers did not offer assistance or appreciation to any protesters.
Loco! Huh?
Because they were being assaulted by them. They were having rocks thrown at them by the protesters. What kind of appreciation would they want to show? But this was where it gets really bonkers. Number 80, the only reason defendants allowed Rittenhouse to walk away after shooting 3 people was because he was white and because he was affiliated with the armed individuals. Wait, why are you pointing out that Kyle Rittenhouse is white? Anthony Huber was white. The person filing this lawsuit is white. You're supposed to be trying to get money for them. John Huber is your client. This does not do your client any good whatsoever. Are you trying to write an essay here on race relations, or are you trying to put together a lawsuit? Number 85 continues the idiocy. Defendants have continued their disparate treatment of black people. Your client is white, and your claim here is that defendants are mistreating black people? How does that help your defendant win the lawsuit? Okay, it gets worse. Number 87, if Kyle Rittenhouse were black, defendants would have acted much differently. Where's the justification for this claim? If a black person had approached police with an assault rifle, offering to patrol the streets with the police, he most likely would have been shot dead. Where's the justification for that claim? If a black child had shot 3 citizens with an assault rifle and was seen walking away from the scene of the shooting with the assault rifle in hand, while other citizens yelled he was an active shooter, he would have been shot dead, according to what evidence? In none of these circumstances would defendants have permitted the individual to roam the streets, illegally and heavily armed, shoot civilians, and then walk past a dozen officers, talk to them, and simply go home. That is pure conjecture. You provide nothing to back that claim. And number 1, you just shake your head. It states, 1 need not look any further than the very event that gave rise to the protest at which Anthony Huber was killed. Although Jacob Blake was not at the site of a shooting, possessed no gun, brandished no weapon, had not shot or hurt anyone, and was climbing into his own car with 2 children. It wasn't his own car, by the way. Blake was shot in the back 7 times by officers employed by defendant KPD. Yeah, let's not mention the fact that Blake had already assaulted the police officers, had been tased twice, pulled the prongs out, then disobeyed police commands to stop, grabbed a knife that had fallen out of his pants, and then tried to get into a car with 3 kids in the back. The car was not his, and he had no permission to take the children. Let's just not mention those facts. Number 93, Jacob Blake is black. Kyle Rittenhouse is white. John Huber is white. He is your client. You're supposed to be fighting for him. In the months after he killed Anthony Huber, Rittenhouse was seen in a bar in his hometown flashing an OK sign, a symbol of white supremacy, white power. You're suing the Kenosha County Sheriff's Department and the Kenosha Police Department, not Kyle Rittenhouse. How is this their fault? Even if he was an avowed white supremacist, and even if he did flash the OK symbol in a bar, of course, many months after the incident, what does that have to do with your lawsuit against the city and the county? Defendant KPD's support of and coordination with the armed individuals was a product of its systemic, racially discriminatory policies and practices. Yes, but your client is white. Anthony Huber is white. And it continues, the KPD has just 8 black police officers. It's not relevant.
That's more like, zany or goofy. Yeah.
The biggest problem I think that they faced, and possibly the reason why they dropped this lawsuit, was that the police did in fact put a curfew in place. This whole whiny crap that, well, they only made some people obey the curfew and not others doesn't hold up. I'm sorry, but if there is a curfew in place and you violate it, it's kind of hard to blame those who put the curfew in place for what happened to you. The complete whitewashing of what took place with Jacob Blake is a serious problem with this lawsuit. Another problem is that there's no attempt whatsoever to describe what took place in Kenosha that night in realistic terms. No, it was not a peaceful demonstration. It was a full-blown riot. There were plenty of buildings burned down. There were assaults. The Loco Lawyer Club is going to become very large. Loevy and Loevy, your law group gets to join it.
With this bandana, I welcome you to the game.
Next, with Loco Lawyers, Kimberly Motley. She's going to actually take this lawsuit that we just read, copy and paste it for her own lawsuit, make some changes, and even screw it up more than it is now. I know you may be skeptical. Wait until Loco Lawyers number 2.